Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Premier, can you talk a little bit about, you had mentioned this during the campaign, but your decision to chop up the health responsibilities a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's a Department of Mental Health yet. Are you still planning to do that?
Yeah, we have. We announced Brian Comer he's the minister for the Office of Addictions and Mental Health. So, yeah, look, we have a big focus on healthcare. We're committed to fixing healthcare in this province, and that means that we need a focus from the highest levels of government. So, you would have seen the minister for health and wellness. You've seen the minister for the Office of Addictions and Mental Health, and obviously the long-term care portion going over to Minister Adams as well. So, three capable, compassionate people that will bring the proper focus to the various parts.
I wonder if you could address the idea of parity and the number of new people that you have in cabinet in significant roles. So what is your thinking behind that?
Yeah, actually, I just learned this morning that that's the most female ministers the province has had. I didn't realize that, but we went through an extensive process to speak to elected officials of caucus, and just make sure that we have the right people in the right assignments that give them a chance to be successful, because that's the way Nova Scotians will be successful. So very proud of the cabinet that we swore in today, and we're committed to making life better for Nova Scotians.
Why Ms. Thompson in health? You may agree that she's likely going to be a focus and attention, because given what your campaign was about.
Very intelligent, compassionate, focused person who understands healthcare, having worked in healthcare, having worked in long-term care, and we're going to make sure that we're surrounded by the proper support system. But definitely, there was no question on the choice for the person who can manage that portfolio.
Your caucus. Clarify again on that mental health and addiction. Again, that office, I believe, was created under Ian Rankin. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you had said during the campaign you were going to create a separate department.
Yeah, we talked about a department, but what we really talked about was making sure there's a focus, making sure there's somebody at the highest level of government at the cabinet table that is focused on, feels responsible for, and is accountable for making sure that people can access the addictions and mental health support they have. So we've done that today with Minister Comer, the minister that's responsible for the Office of Addictions and Mental Health, and we'll keep fine-tuning as necessary. But for me, the critical issue was have somebody who feels responsible and accountable at the cabinet table and is totally focused on it. And we have that today. I'm excited about that.
Premier, how did you decide on Pat Dunn to be minister responsible for African Nova Scotian affairs? And did you consider at any point perhaps bringing somebody in from outside caucus who is black to hold that role?
We considered a lot of options, but the reality, the conclusion that I reached ultimately was that our democracy works best when the people that are elected are put into positions of accountability, and that's the best way it works. So we looked at the slate of the caucus. We looked at their past experiences, the communities they represent, and what I would say, my message to the community is that as the Premier, I'm ultimately responsible for making sure that their views, that their concerns are heard and respected, and we will do that. And we'll also have a minister in Minister Dunn who's focused on representing the community as well.
But specifically to Mr. Dunn, though, what was it about Mr. Dunn that made you decide he was the best choice amongst your caucus colleagues?
Yeah, look, he represents the community of Priestfield. We share that community. I've been I know a number of members of that community. I know that the respect and esteem they have for Pat Dunn through his work over the years, and he's the right person in our cabinet to make sure that the views of the community are respected, that they're heard, and that we work with them. That's our commitment. That's our focus.
Tim Hallman was one of your sort of main lieutenants in the legislature, supported you in leadership. What are you trying to show by putting him in the environment? It seems to be you're putting more importance on that portfolio.
Look, every portfolio has incredible importance. I have utmost respect for all the members of our caucus, but certainly all the members of the cabinet. and just looked at the areas where people have an interest, where they're dedicated to, and where they can be successful. And Minister Hallman is very interested, as we all are, in fighting climate change and protecting our environment. Every Nova Scotian has an obligation to preserve our planet. But it's a focus of our government. It was a focus of Premier Rankin's, and I respected him for that. And it's incredibly important to us as well.
Premier, Mayor Mike Savage requested funding from the province to help the city in efforts to immediately fund adequate housing for those who are currently living in tents. And I was wondering what your response to that is.
Yeah, look, we're just sworn in today. We have a great minister in Minister Lohr, who will be responsible for municipal affairs and housing, and shares the concerns that we have as a caucus that Nova Scotians have, that have been raised, and certainly that Gary Burrow raised and put the light on as well. We share that as well. So, we'll work with the municipalities on a lot of issues. Housing is certainly front and center, but we definitely look forward to speaking to them and getting up to speed on that file and see what solutions they may have. Also, what solutions we can put forward.
When it comes to housing, what's something immediately you want to do to help folks who are struggling so much right now with the vacancy rate and the rising cost of rent in the city?
The first thing that I want them to know, my message to them, is we understand and we share their concern. We'll look for, there's a variety of solutions we're talking about, and it'll be a focus. But there's no overnight fix. I mean, we didn't have tent cities in this province 8 years ago. I mean, this is something that developed over time. The solution's going to take time, but I feel the urgency, and my cabinet feels the urgency as well.
You say there's no overnight fix, and yet thousands of people are getting letters saying their rent's going to go up 50%, 100% as soon as the state of emergency is lifted. You maintain rent control is not a solution. There needs to be a long-term solution. How do these people get any kind of relief in the immediate future?
Yeah, rent control is not a long-term solution. It's not. I mean, that's just my position. I believe in real solutions that really get to the heart of it. And the solution to a housing crisis is more housing. And I do not believe that rent control will result in more housing. So therefore, it's not a legitimate solution in the long term, in my mind. Are there short-term concerns? Yes. Are there medium concerns? Yes. We'll work with that. We're still in a state of emergency in this province. Nothing will change until that's over. We'll work with public health on when that ends. But we're only interested in real solutions. We're just not interested in soundbites. So my message to them is the same as I just stated. I understand the concern. I grew up in a family that rented. I've had those discussions with my own parents about the concerns that they had when times of rental increases were coming. I get it. I understand it. And my commitment is to find real solutions to the issues facing this province. That's what Nova Scotians elected me to do, and that's what my focus will be on, real solutions. Sir Frank. Yes, we'll, over the next couple of days. Maybe today. I'm just not sure on the exact status, but definitely public. Yeah. Well, the members of the legislature will elect the Speaker of the House, and I will have one vote in that process, as will all the other MLAs in the House. So I suspect there's a number of people that will be great speakers for the House, and the members will decide who that is. Yeah, mid-October. I think it's scheduled for next week. I think that's what the one we scheduled the last time, right when kind of school goes back and stuff. So right now that's the one that's scheduled.
Do you have any idea when public accounts will be published?
In terms of the financial update, yeah, I think it's towards the end of September. I'm not. We can check on that. Yeah, I'm just not totally sure on that.
What choose Gordon LeBlanc as Minister of the Commission of Public Services and Regional Services?
Yeah, and Canadian Affairs. Just a quality person, smart person who can bring a perspective, particularly a youthful perspective, to some of the options, to some of the opportunities there. So I'm excited about to see what Minister LeBlanc can do, but certainly the entirety of the cabinet. I'm excited, really excited.
Thanks, Premier.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Next up, we have Minister of Health and Wellness, Mr. Hall.
Go to the fry pan?
Hi, Minister.
Hello.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Mr., what are you thinking today as you're sworn in? You're newly sworn in MLA yesterday, and now you're responsible for the largest portfolio in the province.
So it's exciting and a little daunting, I won't lie, but I am excited to get started. I've been in healthcare for 30 years, and I feel that my lived experience is an asset in this role. And so I'm looking forward to getting started. Of course, I need to be briefed, but just, yeah, very anxious to get going.
The Premier has, in some ways, siphoned off the workload for you a little bit. He has somebody designated to look at seniors and long-term care, and somebody designated to look at mental health and addictions. How do you, and I appreciate, it's early days, but how do you foresee the three of you working together as well as working on your own respective portfolios?
Well, I think the system is complex, and in order for us to make, gains across the system, we will have to work closely together. Again, I'm not sure what that will look like, but of course it's going to be very important for us to meet on a regular basis and understand one another's initiatives. So yeah, I think it will be a very close working relationship.
And do you have an understanding yet of what is expected with respect to the new healthcare professional recruitment office?
Not quite yet. The briefings will come. Yeah.
Do you think that being from a rural area gives you a different perspective on healthcare?
I think it does. I certainly have worked in rural Nova Scotia for my entire career, and so I feel that there are things that work well, in a tertiary environment, and then certainly in a rural environment, there are different challenges and different opportunities. So I'm happy to bring that experience and voice forward.
What are your personal priorities for this job?
So my personal priorities, I feel a strong commitment to my colleagues and certainly to the people of Nova Scotia. As a person who was at the bedside for a long time, I feel that healthcare has deteriorated over the last number of years, and so my personal commitment is to do my very best to improve things on a daily basis.
Is there anything specifically, though, that you think you need to address right away?
Yeah, so I think access to primary health care is really important. People need access to primary care providers across the province, and certainly that will be something that we'll be working on, looking at what are the short-term and long-term solutions to that.
Great, thanks everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And we got Minister Barbara Adams, Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Congratulations, Minister.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you the same question I asked Ms. Thompson. How do you foresee you and Minister Thompson and Minister Comer working together, but also respecting the fact that you each have your own kind of corner of the yard?
So we're all health professionals, and collaboration has been the mantra of all health professionals. So we're going to do the exact same thing we would have done when we were working as health professionals, and that is looking at the priorities of the departments that we have and making sure that they're all working together well.
Where do you come down on whether or not long-term care workers ought to be mandated to have a vaccine for COVID-19?
So we're going to meet as a caucus to discuss these issues, and we're going to meet with Dr. Strang to go over all of the decisions that they've made over the past year and a half and look at what the pros and cons are for all of the decisions that public health made over the past year and a half and see how that impacts long-term care.
Do you, as somebody who's been in long-term care homes, I know you did work during the pandemic, do you have concerns about people working in them if they are not vaccinated?
The primary goal is to keep everyone as safe as possible. And so we're going to have to meet with Dr. Strang and talk about how many people are vaccinated. There's a lot of information we're still missing. And so we're going to need to get that briefing from Dr. Strang and our departments to know exactly how many long-term care staff are vaccinated, what the barriers have been, and to see what we can do to make as many people in Nova Scotia vaccinated as soon as possible.
Minister, your party spelled out a pretty ambitious plan for building out long-term care last summer. Is that part of your portfolio now? Is that part of your responsibility to oversee that expansion?
The ministerial position I have has been my critic role, and I was partially responsible for helping write that plan. So I'm very familiar with all of the details in that plan. We've had an opportunity, because we put it out a year before, to have talked to a lot of stakeholders to get feedback and advice from all of them, and so we're very comfortable with the path moving forward.
Minister, as a woman, you've been in the minority in politics, and I'm just wondering what you make of being part of, I guess, the most gender balanced or closest to gender balanced cabinet in Nova Scotia?
It's a huge honor, and I'm extremely excited that we have the most women in cabinet in history. We bring a very unique perspective, and you saw that reflected in the bills that we brought forward in the legislature and the issues that we raised with the previous government. And so I see you'll see that strength coming forward now that there are more of us in cabinet and in the caucus.
Awesome, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Minister Becky Druin, Minister of Education and Early Childhood.
Congratulations, Minister.
Thank you very much.
What, I know you're a lawyer by training, so tell us sort of your thoughts on now becoming education minister.
Well, I'm honored and I'm very, very excited. It's a great opportunity to make the improvements that we had in our platform and make some real improvements in education.
Where does that begin for you?
It begins with relationship building for me. It's reaching out to the stakeholders, speaking with the union, getting briefed and really listening to the changes that need to be made by the people who are working in the system and within the educational system.
So are you pledging up front better relations with the teachers' union as opposed to what we?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Any chance we'll see a return to elected school boards?
We will absolutely be looking at putting more local power and local decision-making back into the school system, for sure. So that's something that we'll be looking into, yes.
Does that include elected school board? That was never quite clear.
It does include looking at school boards, for sure, yes.
And how quickly could that be? That was something that, I don't think there was a timeline on that.
Yeah.
When would you like to see elections for school boards?
Right, I can't speak to that. I'm at this moment just looking forward to getting briefed and starting to make some concrete plans in that direction.
Thanks, Minister.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Minister John Moore, Minister responsible for municipal affairs and housing.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here today.
Congratulations, Minister.
Thank you.
Minister, your premier has been quite explicit about his views on rent control in the long term, so I'm not going to belabor that point. But I do wonder if you could speak a little bit about your thoughts on the idea of rent control potentially being a bridge as your government works towards getting the necessary amount of housing that Mr. Houston says we need to ultimately overcome the housing crisis.
So, first of all, I'll just say it's a pleasure to accept this new role, and I'm very pleased at the confidence that Tim Houston has shown in me. Realize that the housing file is an extremely important one to Premier Houston. You understand we ran on a platform of mainly on healthcare, but in fact, Premier Houston has indicated to me that this is his second most important file right now. We recognize there are huge issues in housing, and we want to address them. And in terms of, as you mentioned, rent control, in terms of that, we recognize that there's a huge shortage of units. We want to solve that from the government's point of view. We realize that private industry, private investors, builders need to be part of that too. So in the long run, that's what we need to do. So that's what I can say about that right now.
What's the housing situation like in the Valley right now? What do you hear from constituents in the last year?
So I can say as an MLA that it's occupied 30 to 50% of our time in my office trying to help people find housing. So it's something that is an issue that is not something that I'm unaware of. We've been dealing with it, and it's something that we've worked very hard on in my office and in the Valley. I think the Valley is, I'm not sure if it's as dire as HRM, but I think the housing issue is real all across the province.
What do you say to the hundreds or thousands of people who have gotten notices saying that their rent's going to increase 50% and more when the state of emergency is lifted?
I'm not aware of that number, but we do care immensely, and we are tracking all of these things very, very closely.
Mr. In HRM, councillors have said that former provincial governments have failed to support them in those who are in most need of housing, particularly those currently living in tents. So I'm just wondering, what is your government going to do differently to address this issue on an immediate basis?
Well, I can say that 8 years ago, there was no tent city in Halifax, right? So in the past 8 years, we've had a government that's had housing in 3 different departments in 6 years. So it's going to be much more of a priority for us, and we want to address these issues. We're very concerned. I realize we're going into winter, so it's a big concern for us. But I've just been sworn in. I haven't been briefed yet as a minister, so I can't comment fully on it. But we certainly, as a government, recognize the urgency to get working on it.
Is there some symbolism to having the same minister responsible for housing and municipal affairs?
Oh, that's a good question. There could be. I mean, we recognize the municipalities are our partners in this. I certainly have a great deal of respect for our municipalities, and we want to work with them.
Minister, what did you make of what happened in Halifax the day after the election? The hearing of the temporary housing, the tents. What did you make of what you saw?
Well, what I can say is what I've already said, is that 8 years ago, there wasn't a tent city. There is now. There's been a failure on to address some of these issues on the past government, and we want to address them.
I know council talked about that today, in the meeting today, that happened shortly before the swearing in, and they were really, a lot of the councillors were putting responsibility on the province. Now, I realize you weren't sworn in yet, you weren't a government, but do you agree that it's, what happened in Halifax on the 18th of August was primarily a collection of a provincial failure?
I wasn't aware. I didn't hear what the councillors said today, so I don't think I want to comment on that.
We'll have time for one more question for the minister.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Minister Lord.
And that wraps our.
Yeah, we have Minister Colton LeBlanc available in French. For anyone.
Right, we'll do them on our camera. They're going to bring in Mr. LeBlanc. If you want to do Mr. LeBlanc. We'll do them on our camera. Go ahead.
I thought you just thought I was going to.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Salut, messieurs. Grand merci.
Alors, Monsieur Leblanc, non seulement vous êtes ministre des Affaires académiques francophones, mais aussi des services publics, on va dire, en général. Est-ce que vous savez pourquoi ce choix d'être ministre dans ces affaires-là?
Je pense que le premier ministre Houston et puis son équipe de transition ont fait une analyse de comment mener la province dans les avenirs meilleurs. Et puis, c'est garder aux forces de notre équipe. On a beaucoup de candidats, bien sûr, beaucoup de députés élus à l'Assemblée. Puis, je suis certain que c'était pas mal, pas nécessairement une décision qui a été faite facile. Cependant, c'était de regarder comment mieux positionner nos députés comme cabinet et puis répondre aux besoins de la Nouvelle-Écosse afin de viser notre mandat comme gouvernement pour les 4 prochaines années.
Et en tant que ministre de Services Nouvelle-Écosse et puis de la Commission des services publics, qu'est-ce que vous pensez que vous pouvez apporter aussi en étant francophone et acadien?
Oui, certainement, moi, comme fier acadien et francophone, c'est certainement regarder l'amélioration des services en français. C'était la loi sur les services en français, c'était une loi, un projet de loi présenté par notre parti dans les années 2000. Alors, comme j'ai mentionné durant la campagne, pour moi, c'était de me positionner avec la Fédération acadienne, comment améliorer cette loi qui existe déjà. Alors, je suis prêt et vraiment dévoué à mes responsabilités comme ministre. Alors, ça fera m'asseoir avec les autres responsables dans le ministère à regarder comment est-ce qu'on peut faire avancer notre province. Merci. 29. I believe. Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister.
Thank you.